everyone. My name's Irene Galea. I'm a former coordinator for National Historic Places Day. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Irene Galea. I am a former coordinator of National Historic Places Day at the National Trust for Canada. Hello, Gabby. Hello, Aziza. I see you here. Aziza, we're just going to connect you up. Hello there.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you for joining us. So I think we'll just wait a minute for some more of our National Trust followers to join us. And what a beautiful day it is for Canada Historic Places Day.
And Irene, if I may ask you, where are you? In which park are you?
I am actually in a park in Quebec.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. There's the water you can see behind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I see that we're just being joined now. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So today we're going to be talking about Ontario Place for about 10 minutes. Some of you may know Ontario Place is one of Canada's major modern architectural masterpieces. And today we are joined by Aziza Chowni, who's leading a team of U of T faculty and students and other heritage conservation professionals in project to research and record and propose new ideas for the historic site. So we'll just give it another few minutes as we wait. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again.
And I want to thank my students also that I see and that are also joining us, also some research team members as well. So hi, everyone, I can see Noor, I can see some other students. Javier, also from the World Monuments Fund, join us. So thank you all for spending with us 10 little minutes to talk about Ontario Place and its future.
Okay, and so for everyone who's not familiar, Canada Historic Places Day is a national day of celebration to recognize and celebrate historic places in Canada. I worked to coordinate the event last year, and this year I'm sitting on the Millennial Board to help put together virtual events so that we can celebrate Canada's historic places. Okay, so I think we can get started now. So once more, I'll introduce Aziza Chowni. Aziza is an architect who's leading a team of U of T students, faculty, and heritage professionals to research and propose new ideas for the development of Ontario Place, one of Canada's major modern architectural landmarks. So Aziza, maybe you could give us a brief background. What is your interest in heritage buildings, and how did you get involved with Ontario Place?
Sure. So first of all, I would like to thank you for instigating this conversation. And actually, it's the first time that we're going to talk about this initiative since our press release is due next week. So I think for everyone, you're going to have the preview of the of this incredible project that was very lucky to co-lead with Bill Greaves from the ACU, as well as Javier from the World Monuments Fund. So just to give you a bit of background, about myself, my name is Aziza. I was born and raised in Morocco. Then I studied in the U.S. architecture and civil engineering, and then I thought I've been teaching at the University of Toronto for the past 11 years now. Wow, it's been a long time. And so what got me interested in heritage and modern architecture is actually started very oddly with my childhood. I was actually taken by my grandmother to a thermal bath station outside of my town. That's a brutalist masterpiece. So Ontario Place, the role of water is very important. But it was all made of concrete. I mean, for a kid, it was quite incredible to have all these basins and fountains and this architecture that looked like a spaceship. So it was almost like a science fiction architecture. So I think it stayed in the back of my mind, and it's only after I went to college and I studied, architecture, that I started to see this architecture with a different eye. And so in Morocco, like in Canada, this architecture is not very much, appreciated by many, by the general public. I think there is a lack of understanding of its value and its, importance. Obviously not all buildings from that era are exceptional. That's the thermal bath of Sidi Harazem by Jean-François Zevako-Ware. I was very lucky to get a Getty grant to actually do a conservation management plan. And in the sense that what got me and now what led me from Morocco, modern heritage, to here, to Canada, and to a fantastic Ontario place. Well, I was contacted in December 2019 by Bill Greaves from the ACO, who's been doing incredible work about the conservation of Ontario Place. And with him, we received together a fund from the World Monument Fund, which is an international organization based in New York that actually supports heritage conservation. And Bill actually has successfully applied and received and was able to list Ontario Place among the World Monuments Fund watch list. And that in a way means a lot. It means that Ontario Place is judged on an international arena as a modern masterpiece. So for people that are listening to us that don't know what Ontario Place is, I will probably leave Bill to detail it more. But what I can tell you is that it was, like a complex, kind of leisure complex that was supposed to have exhibitions and also rides for kids around the theme of Ontario. And it opened in 1971. It was designed by Eb Zeidler. And it was built on 3 artificial small islands of Ontario Lake, right south of Exhibition Place. So, it was open for 3 decades, and then, unfortunately, was run down. Modern, architecture is supposed to be maintained. If it doesn't have, the appropriate program, it would also die away. So here comes our Future of Ontario Place project. It was in a way a reaction to the fact that Ontario Place, one, was not well known by the general public, nor by professionals of architecture and students of architecture, and second, that it is a threat of disappearing. So now that it's been recognized as a heritage on the international arena, yet the provincial government, who owns the land, wants to redevelop it, most probably with condos, most probably by privatizing this part of the waterfront. And we think, especially me coming from Morocco, a country that has, buildings, restored buildings that were 10 centuries old, 10 centuries. And here in Canada, which is a young country with not that much heritage, I was shocked to hear that Ontario Place, despite its importance, both for the citizens as a public space and as a masterpiece of modern heritage, was most probably going to be demolished or to be actually affected by development. So this is where our project starts. So we all put our forces together. Daniels, the Faculty of Architecture at the University of Toronto, the ACO, and the World Monument Fund, who's funding this research, which is a year long, where we're going to gather all information and archive that exists about Ontario Place to tell its story. So we're going to have that ready, hopefully in September, in a website format. But that website would also be an opportunity for people, all across Canada and beyond, and mainly from Toronto and Ontario, to share their own stories about, Ontario Place, either through, a voice message, by writing, if they want to submit a photo. So in a sense, we want to gather the history of, Ontario Place. And maybe I would like to request that Bill replace me and tell you more about the next steps of the project and tell you more about the importance of Ontario Place.
Mm-hmm. So Bill Greaves is a member on the board of the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, and Bill is responsible for putting Ontario Place forth for the World Monuments Fund, which now it has been listed on their 2020 watch list. So Bill, if you're with us, just click that request button and I will bring you on. And for everyone who's watching, thank you so much for joining us. I see lots of people from Toronto. If you have any memories about Ontario Place, we'd love to see those in the comments. Or if you have any questions, we have some experts here on Ontario Place today, and I'm sure they would be happy to answer those for you. So, Bill, if you want to
And for those, of the people that are here that have not been to Ontario Place yet, please go and please visit it. I mean, a lot of its buildings are close to the public. You can see them from outside, and it's a fantastic place to be if you want to be close to the water. So please go and visit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and as we bring Bill on, maybe Aziza, you could speak a little bit to some possible development ideas for Ontario Place, or what you hope to see in the future.
Indeed. So, I truly believe that its building and part of its landscape needs to be preserved because of their historic value. So this is one. And number two, I'm a strong proponent of having a waterfront for all. So a waterfront that's not privatized. I think we have enough condos in the city. I think we need to start to be more innovative about what housing by the water can be. To think of a more mixed housing, like most probably mixed income housing, as that could be like a good opportunity. But I think this is Ontario Place is also, it's almost a blank slate because it has huge parking lots. And maybe this is a moment where we can rethink what public space can be to be able also to suit moments of pandemics. So maybe it is an opportunity for designers to rethink a resilient form of public spaces. And if I might add one more comment is that, so I just mentioned one part of the project, then we have two other parts of the project. The second part is cross-Canadian design charrette, where we're going to invite students from all architecture schools and design schools in Canada to create teams, so cross-school team. This is the first time that such a thing is going to be done. And we're going to ask them to rethink the future of, like a Ontario Place, and they're going to be, a prize money, and the winners are also going to be featured on the website.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Aziza. I'm just going to exit out of here so that Bill can have a chance to join us. Thank you so much for your time today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Okay. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. And Bill, I think now would be a fantastic time to hear from you. I see it in the comments. Nora, I went swimming there yesterday. Great beach potential. It's true. It's actually said that the beach right off of the Ontario Place coast there has some of the cleanest water in Toronto. So if you haven't been there, it's a great time to check that out now on these beautiful sunny days that we have. And so we're just waiting for Bill now. And Bill will join us. Okay. Hello, Bill. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for bearing with me. This is my first Instagram Live event, so I was having a little bit of technical difficulty getting through.
Well, you're here now.
Great, yes. So happy to be here to talk about Ontario Place. Thank you so much for putting this together.
Of course.
And bear with me while I adjust. There we go. I would certainly, I know I could sort of talk personally about my experience of Ontario Place, which is just that I'm a Torontonian, and I certainly grew up with all of my children. All of my birthdays were at the Children's Village, and we would go see movies at the Cinesphere, IMAX films, usually by the National Film Board of Canada, things like North of Superior. And then when I was a teenager, I would go see, lots of concerts at the Forum, sort of like Blue Rodeo and Cowboy Junkies, I particularly remember. And one of the important things about this is this was all free or nearly free. It's one of the reasons that my parents could have 20 children come and go to Ontario Place to the Children's Village for a birthday party, because it was affordable and available to the public. And I think that's a really important quality about it. It was also free in the sense of open-endedness. The Children's Village, I think it would almost be difficult to make something like the Children's Village today, because it had things like a forest of punching bags that you would run through. And there was, in fact, a nurse on duty always when it was open, because kids would get a little bit bruised. And similarly with the Forum, which is now gone, unfortunately, it was demolished and replaced with the Molson's Amphitheater, and now the Budweiser Stage. And again, that also was sort of an in-the-round theater, sort of gently nestled in the hills. And instead of being assigned a seat, you could just sort of lounge on these grassy slopes around this amphitheater. It had that same sense of sort of freedom and openness that Ontario Place, I think, had. So those are sort of my personal memories of the space. I could talk a little bit more about the specific threat to the site, which Aziza did allude to, which is that last year about this time, the provincial government issued what they call a request for expressions of interest, which was essentially a note to developers. They asked developers to put in proposals for developing the site, and they explicitly, in that request for expressions of interest, do not put any restrictions on conserving any part of the site. The Sinosphere, the pods, any of the islands, anything can be demolished. And the only restriction they had was that the newly built Trillium Park, which is a park, quite a successful one, really built right on part of the Ontario Place lands, that can be demolished too. But if they demolish that, they simply have to build another public space of 7.5 acres. That's the site of the park. And other than that, no restrictions whatsoever. So it's a real threat. It's really and it is. The other thing that I think sometimes we don't realize is just how important a piece of modern architecture and landscape architecture this site is. It's not just important for Torontonians or even Canadians, it's globally important in terms of an expression of certain very radical ideas that were circulating in the 1960s and early 70s in the architectural world. And Canada at that time was really going through a moment when we embraced radical modern architecture. And we were very forward-thinking in design at that time, following on the Centennial projects and then Expo. There was just a lot of ferment going on in the Canadian architectural scene. And this is really one of the prime examples, one of the most sort of radical examples of that. I mean, imagine the idea of suspending these giant pods over Lake Ontario and then floating a giant golf ball in the lake. I mean, there's a certain playful quality to it, but it's also a really radical piece of architecture and landscape.
So now that it is listed by the World Monuments Fund on their 2020 watch, largely thanks to your efforts, what do you hope to see happen in the next months or years?
Well, I think the thing we most want to do is to try to guide or influence the process so that as Ontario Place is brought back into its, to become what it can fully be, the Minister of Heritage referred to it as a crown jewel, and we agree. I think what's really important as we start to think about what to happen in Ontario Place, to realize what we already have, and to what extent is this a jewel that basically just needs to be polished, and just to find a way to not waste the value of that site. I think it's important that it retain. I think part of its heritage quality is the fact that it is a public space. I think its publicness is part of its heritage. And I think it just has this incredible opportunity to be a resource for, as it was originally intended to be, a resource for the people of Toronto and the people of Ontario to experience the lakeshore in a way that in Toronto, I think we don't have a really strong experience of the lake. We're not so aware of its presence, but at Ontario Place, there was a very specific and successful intent to really design a place that connected you to the water and connected you to the lake. Very careful modulation of the landforms to sort of present the lake to you in all of its different aspects, protected little coves, a rocky shore. So I think if we can just recognize the value, the incredible value of what's there, and use that to sort of structure the conversation around what happens next, I think. And the government has already done that. In 2014, they actually produced what's called a statement of cultural heritage value, where they went through the site and identified all of its heritage aspects and prioritized them. And it actually provides a really useful framework that can be applied to today's conditions and come up with a really smart, plan that takes into account the importance of conserving Ontario Place. So.
Well, it's so heartening to know that there's such a wonderful team of academics, students, and heritage professionals who are working to think up plans to preserve Ontario Place for all of us. That's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you on. And thank you to everyone who watched. So today we had Aziza Chouani and Bill Greaves from U of T and from the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario talking about Ontario Place in Toronto. And please, if you have any other questions about heritage, feel free to reach out to me or the National Trust for Canada. And thank you all for joining us on this live stream for Canada Historic Places Day. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.